Welcome to Public Affairs. We will be interviewing Consul General Leo Herrera Lim, direct and live from the Philippine Consulate General Office, Los Angeles, California. Thank you so much for your time, Consul General.
Thank you also, AWEE, for giving us this opportunity to reach some of your listeners.
Yes. Well, topmost on the program is about the Philippine presidential elections 2016. Would you kindly give us an update, especially for the overseas voters?
Well, thanks for the question, AWEE. I think every Filipino right now, their main focus is the elections wherever they are, whether they're inside the country or in one of the overseas areas where Filipinos can be found. And I think there's a bit of eagerness to choose the next set of leaders. The current elections is a national elections. For those who are overseas, they're choosing for president, vice president, and 12 senators and 1 party list members. It's a bit more complicated for those voting inside the Philippines because there's also choosing for congressmen and local government officials. So in one city, they can probably have to choose around 40 sets of names. Outside the country, it's only for around 15 sets of names for this election. So far, here in LA, the voting has gradually increased. We started the process about 3 weeks ago, and many Filipinos started to come into the consulate during the last few days, voting personally and or mailing their ballots. We expect the more of our people to try to beat the deadline before May 9 in terms of casting their ballots.
Mm-hmm. And would you say, Consul General, that those who are registered voters will be voting? Or have you received word that some others did not receive their ballots?
Those who've either said that they've not received their ballots, we've tried to verify whether we've mailed it to them or whether it's just in transit. But so far, we've not heard of somebody who's wanting to vote has not received the ballot, and some of our people have just decided to go to the consulate and vote.
You just answered my question. I was just wondering whether if they received their ballot and were not able to mail it, can they just deliver it personally?
Yes, and they have first to check the website whether their name is in the list of those registered, and then once their name is there, we can arrange that they get a ballot for vote.
Please give the exact date when people can go personally to the Consulate General Office to vote. And when and up to what time will it be held?
Okay, we're open every day, even Saturdays and Sundays, just for voting, from 8 a.m. to 5 p.m. We close the voting on May 9, 2 a.m. So madaling, it's early dawn because we have to coincide the closure of the voting with the closure in the Philippines. So that's for personal voting. They have to be within the premises of the consulate by May 9, 2 a.m. be able to vote. But I suggest they don't wait for the last minute. They can vote in the next few days personally by walking into the consulate. For those mailing, we suggest that they mail their ballots either today or tomorrow and choose the next day mail option so that their vote can reach the consulate before May 9, because the reckoning period is the date of May 9, 2 a.m., the time the receipt of the consulate, not the post date of the ballot, but the consulate has to receive their ballot before May 9, 2 a.m.
And the special instruction, especially for those who have not voted and this will be their first time, is this an automated election? In other words, you provide all the materials and even the pen?
Yes, for those coming into the consulate, we have the marking pens. They just shade the left side portion of the candidate they choose, and then they feed the ballot into the reader. Then they get a receipt after that, just to ensure that the people they chose appear on the receipt, and then they drop that receipt into a special receptacle just for verification purposes. So it's pretty much during the past few days incident-free. Medyo no dramas in the personal voting process. People were very much satisfied in the efficiency.
By the way, Consul General, are people who are dual citizens able to vote?
Yes, those who are dual citizens and registered to vote. We closed the registration October of last year. So those who are registered dual citizens, they can vote.
A little bit of a concern that we had received with regards to the hacking of the data system. Is that correct? The database for all those registered voters?
Well, we also saw that news on the COMELEC website has been hacked, and some of the personal information of voters have been compromised. But in a way, that hasn't affected overseas voting, because we've not seen like the potential fraud of two persons claiming just one ballot, or another person impersonating a registered voter. We've not seen that phenomenon here in Los Angeles nor in other consulates across the U.S.
In other words, when they go to the Consul General office personally, you check their ID and other identity cards.
Absolutely, we verify their identity, and I think it's also a tribute to our kababayans here in the U.S. They tend to be like forthright in this whole process. They want to guard the whole process themselves.
Interestingly enough, through the years that we had done in interviews about overseas voting, the numbers have really increased. What would be the estimate for this year for overseas voters?
Well, initially we had a good response in terms of our drive to register a lot of voters. In fact, Los Angeles was one of the highest globally, and the highest in the U.S. We were able to, both the stock and the new voters, able to register around 54,000 voters for the Los Angeles area, meaning those who came from Southern California, Southern Nevada, New Mexico, Arizona, and Texas. But we're still awaiting whether those who've registered will actually come forward and vote. The experience during prior years is pretty much around 16% to 18% voter turnout.
And finally, Consul General, when would we know the results of these elections?
From this, we have 6 precincts in our jurisdiction, meaning the aggregation of the votes. I think we'll be prepared to release the results by midday of May 9 Pacific time. But in terms of the aggregate, it's Washington, D.C. that compiles all the voting across the U.S., and I think they're targeting to release it before the end of the day, or before midnight of May 9.
And finally, to know the result of the presidential elections in the Philippines would be when?
In the Philippines, I'm not sure whether COMELEC has set a timeline, and I might not be in a position to put COMELEC in a bind in terms of forecasting when the results would come out. But it would be, I think, ultimately faster than prior presidential elections in terms of release, because the counting has been automated, and this is not the first time, particularly in the Philippines, that they'll have automated counting. In the foreign service or overseas, it's the first time that we'll have automated counting.
Thank you so much, Consul General.